You have honored me by allowing my words to express your grief. The most moving teaching learning experience of my entire life occurred during the spring of 2016. Kevin Corcoran, a member of the philosophy department at Calvin, was teaching his Introduction to Philosophy course in Handlen Prison during the spring of 2016. For some years, he had included my book, Lament for a Son, in the syllabus for his course. As they were discussing lament in the prison class, Kevin happened to mention to the prisoners, the class, that he knew me and that I lived in Grand Rapids. The men in the class brought up the idea of inviting me to visit their class. So Kevin invited me, and I accepted. The director of the Calvin program, Todd Schaffey, drove me to the prison, explaining the program as we drove. After much paper shuffling at the front desk, I was admitted into the prison, and Todd led me to the classroom. I was immediately struck by how ample it was, and how beautifully furnished. The entire ensemble spoke of dignity. Here, in this room at least, these men were not being warehoused. What happened next brought tears to my eyes. The 20 men in the class, later I learned that 17 of them were in prison for life, all had copies of the lament, and they lined up for me to sign their copies. As I was signing their copies, they would say, "We are so honored, Professor, that you have come to visit our class." Never before had students told me that they were honored by my presence in their classroom. Sometimes when I am introduced as speaker, the person introduces me declares sort of pro forma that the group is honored to have me as its speaker that evening. I take that to mean something like, "It's a feather in our cap that Professor W accepted our invitation to speak." These prisoners were not saying it was a feather in their cap that I'd shown up. They, who were daily demeaned, forced to knuckle under and ordered around, were saying that my presence honored them, declared that they were not worthless scum, declared that they possessed honor. That's what I understood them to be saying. I do not cheer up when someone introducing me declares that the group is honored by my acceptance of their invitation to speak. I did tear up when these men declared that they were honored that I'd come to visit their class. After Kevin introduced me, I said a few words about how I came to write the book, and then opened it up for discussion. The men in the class were themselves in grief. Most of them not over the death of a child, but over the ruin they had wreaked on their own lives and the lives of others. They were reading the book not so much as my expression of my grief, but as an expression of their grief. Similar to the way in which we use the words of the Psalms to pray our own prayers. They would turn to a passage, read it aloud, and explain how the words spoke for them. They were amazingly open, more open than students in any other college class I have ever taught. Some described the crime they had committed. Several spoke of how they had destroyed their relationships with the people they loved. Their comments were articulate, emotionally intense, suffused by life experience, eloquent. They offered interpretations of my words that had never occurred to me. I was the student that day. They were the teachers. I felt profoundly my common humanity with these men. I was a professor who had never spent a day of his life behind bars, and they were prisoners, mostly lifers. But we were in this together, reading the text, discussing the text, sharing our grief. I felt more connected with these lifers than I've ever felt connected with 18 to 22-year-old college students. And at some point, the feeling washed over me. What a terrible waste of life. Yes, these men have committed serious crimes and deserve to be punished. But isn't there some alternative way to locking them up for life? Must human lives be wasted in this way? When the class session was over, they lined up to shake my hand. And again they said how honored they were that I had come to visit their class. As the last few filed past, I said what I had felt but had not, until then, been able to put into words. You have honored me by allowing my words to express your grief.